Sandra Millen Underwood, who will share our purpose of the day. Dr. Underwood is a professor emeritus at the College of Nursing at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. She has dedicated much of her career to addressing disparities in cancer education, prevention, early detection, and cancer risk management among at-risk populations. Dr. Underwood's funded research projects have, among other things, expanded awareness, understanding, screening, empowerment for women, children, men from urban communities, rural communities, island communities, beyond the United States. Its remarkable work has broadened our understanding of the cancer experience, concerns, and needs of hardly served populations. And we are very grateful to welcome her here today. Please welcome Dr. Sandra Underwood.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I too am extremely excited to be present with each and every one of you. I remember being at the last collaborative meeting when we met, in person. And I remember the energies that were shared at that moment. And I remember the energies that were shared that propelled us all to do more in our communities. That too is the purpose and the goal of today's meeting. Because we have been actively involved as a collaborative since the mid-1980s. We have been in the forefront of addressing cancer control issues in Wisconsin, but the reality is nationwide as well. Many of you in this room are very young, but I am very old, if the truth be told. Because I remember our history relative to cancer control in this nation. I was involved with many leaders of our nation in this cancer control initiative. Many of you were too. Many of you remember the work of Secretary Margaret Heckler, the work that identified many of the challenges that were faced by underserved and underrepresented populations in our nation. In spite of the advances in the science and the practice that we had available, many peoples in our communities were not adequately being served. Many of you remember those reports that were published. We read them, we taught them, they led our work. But in spite of that, even today, we realize that there's a lot more work that needs to be done. This collaborative works not only representatives within our state and nationally in NIH, but we also work with a number of foundations and societies in our area, such as the American Cancer Society. Because in addition to the seminal work of the Wisconsin Collaborative and the National Institutes of Health, I truly believe it was the work of the American Cancer Society that helped us all really get it. Many of you remember the hearings that were presented by the American Cancer Society on cancer in the poor. Many of you remember the words and the experiences and the stories that were shared as a result of those hearings. Many of you remember the faces that were represented during those hearings and the findings that were generated that identified the major atrocities and the barriers that we needed to face if we really wanted to get a control on cancer in our nation. But few of you probably remember the name of one woman that got all of our attention. The one woman who stood before Congress, who stood before the society, and said her greatest impediment was not that she was poor. She said her greatest impediment was the healthcare system made her feel poor. You remember, you heard, and you sighed when Cassandra Middleton shared her story. But when we heard her story, heard her words, heard her passion, we understood what we needed to do. We needed to listen, we needed to hear, and we needed to ask one critical question. When was I part of that system that made her feel less than? Not if, not where, but the reality is when. And why, Carol and Charlene and Dawn? Is because if we're true to ourselves, we recognize that who is the system that she was talking about? It doesn't matter that she received her care the best that the world can offer. Because the reality is, each and every one of us in this room is part of the system. And if we can humble ourselves just for a moment to ask the question, not only if it was I, but when it was I. When could I have done it more excellently to make a difference in somebody's life, in somebody's experience? You heard last night the echoes of many people who were faced by cancer. Many of us paused, many of us chuckled, many of us sighed, but more importantly, did we listen? Because the goal of the presentation last night and the presentations today is to listen. A student sent me this image years ago. I'm thankful that she admired some of what I did in such a way that she was thought that I was one of this group. She said, the best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. Today, as on many occasions, we're trying to encourage each and every one of us to look, to listen. So not only can we see and hear, but more importantly, so we can understand. The work of Dr. Hetler, the work of Dr. Freeman, the work of Dr. Carbone, and so many others helped us to understand the greatest challenge that we face is that critical disconnect between what we know and what we do relative to cancer care, but so many other aspects of care as well. But I want to applaud each and every one of you in this room and some of our leaders within the state of Wisconsin Health Services. For example, Gail Johnson, who is the leader of our Wisconsin Well Women program. Who helps us understand that we don't have to fuss and fight among one another. There's enough work for us all to do. Gail reminds us, as has often been said, that there's none so blind than those who have eyes but cannot see because they fail to look. Our goal is to look so we can see, but also we can understand. I also want to recognize the work of Dr. Harold Freeman and Dr. Gail Johnson and so many others who helped us understand the importance of navigation, but I also want to acknowledge John Shelton Williams. Who's also part of the collaborative, but she puts navigation in place. Dr. Freeman talked about the importance of navigation, but she makes it real. She helps connect women and families in our state to services that they need to respond to some of the challenges that we're faced, that was presented yesterday. But I also want to recognize another key person, Beth, for your work on the collaborative. Because in all that we do, Beth helps us do this work more excellently year after year after year. Because many of you have heard this adage But listen carefully to what it says. Tell me, and I will forget. Show me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I will understand. Beth is helping us today and always to better understand. Because of the way that she's planned this program, she is trying to help us more adequately engage the communities. One of the things that I often will share with my audiences when I'm doing presentations like this, presentations in which we've invited people from all over to come and share. People from Wisconsin, people from Illinois, people who were from Utah and otherwise, to come and invite and participate with us. But I also encourage my colleagues to think about not only who is here, and we're happy about everybody who's here, but also think about those who are not here. Think about those who couldn't come, who didn't come, who wouldn't come, who also need to be present. Right. Can you see her? Can you see him? Beth has made it possible for us to save a seat for them at this table. Yes, there are many empty chairs, but some of that is by design. We have some special guests that will be coming, and they're coming in their own way at their own time. I came from Illinois. I came yesterday because I couldn't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive in the dark, and to be here at 7:30 so I could do this talk. But we made it happen. And we're going to make it happen for so many other people today. But when they come, you have a job. To see them, to hear them, but more importantly, to greet them and to engage them. And then you'll understand why that is so important to all of what we do. Because our goal is not just to talk the talk, but to live it. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it well. You will be introduced, you will be engaged, but let this not be the last occasion that we come together and share and embrace as we try to reach and serve. We've got some remarkable reports that are going to be shared, a work that's been done by the collaborative over the last several months that's showing us again what we already know. There are disparities in our cities, there's disparities in our state that we need to address. We are addressing it, but we need to do so much more. This is a remarkable occasion. Take advantage, look, listen, understand, but more importantly, do. The question is, what do I need to do next, Sandra? If you look, if you listen, you'll know. Let people do in their own way. Let people share to fill the gaps that they have expressed need to be filled. And last but not least, like my father told me years ago, I didn't understand it then, like I understand it now. He said, Sandra, come by sometime when you don't want something. That's a message that somebody's going to get at 6 o'clock tonight. You may not get it now, but you may get it at 6 o'clock tonight. I didn't understand it back then like I understand it now. But I thank my Father for those words. I thank you, Beth, for this opportunity. I thank you all for this continued collaboration. Be blessed.